right, well, it is so good to see you guys tonight. If we haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Colin, and I'm the pastor here at Freedom Church. And tonight is a very special night. I mean, every night's special, but we get time with you tonight. And if it's okay with you, over the past couple weeks, we have been exploring the book of Galatians, talking about the book of freedom. But if it's okay with you, I'd like to pull a little bit of an audible tonight, if that's all right. Part of what we've been talking about is we've been moving forward in freedom. And we've been talking about the things that we're free from. And if I can just be honest, there's not going to be enough sermons to talk about every single thing that Jesus does for our lives to help us move forward, to be able to live in freedom. But as I was preparing this message, there was another message that I had actually prepared as well. And I really just felt impressed by God that I needed to share this one with you. So if it's okay with you, we're going to end our series on Galatians by having a little bit of a different message, okay? Now, I promise you, this one is going to be just as full of all the same biblical text and everything that is what we normally do, but this one is going to require you to do something different because normally I provide the sermon notes for you. Tonight, I'm not going to do that because they're not there for you. So I'm going to help you out with this. If you need help with it, you can grab somebody who's got one of those tags on. They'll be able to help you out with this. But the goal of this, and the reason why we're doing this, is not because I just have a different idea and I just want to do something cool. No. I really believe God wants to speak to something to you tonight. I believe for each and every one of us, there's different spots where we find ourselves at in life when we just stop. So this message tonight, what we're focusing on is freedom when you can't move forward. Freedom whenever you feel like in life you're just stuck. And part of, in this message prep, what I thought of was a really key moment in my life when I just felt stuck. Happened about 15 years ago when I was about 15 years old. Yes, don't do that math, okay? So at this time, it was literally around this time of year. I was on a camping trip with my grandparents. And I decided at this time, you know what, I'm going to do something really fun. I'm going to bring my bike, and I'm going to learn how to do a bunch of really cool tricks on my bike. Now, just by looking at me, you probably think this kid probably should never be touching a city bike, let alone any other type of bike, and you're correct, okay? That is not anything in my skill set. But I decided this summer I'm going to learn how to do it. So I'm in the middle of the Poconos at this campground with my grandparents. My parents are celebrating their 20th wedding anniversary, so they're out on a cruise in the middle of nowhere. And I'm originally from Pittsburgh, so we drive out to this campground in the Poconos, and I'm out on my bike, and I'm just having the best time. And so my cousin rolls up with this special bike that he has, and for me this was the coolest thing because on the back wheel it had these two pegs that were sticking out. You know, like how you can do those types of trick things on it. Now, I'd only seen of this, but just because you see something doesn't mean you should do it. That might be all you need to hear today. That might be the word you need to walk out of here with. But I thought to myself, I can do it. And I was like, I'm just going to try it on a speed bump. So I'd get a bunch of air, and then I'd lift up the front of the bike, and I'd do a little bit of a wheelie for about like half a second. And as I kept doing this, me being the cool 15-year-old that I was, all of a sudden accumulated an audience of cool little 6-year-olds that were all watching me, and I didn't want to let them down, so I needed to up the thing. So I'm like, all right, I got to try to like get some air on this speed bump. So I went with as much speed as I could. I must have been at least going like 2 miles an hour, okay? So I get some air off this speed bump, but what I didn't know at that time was that I had a really rare condition in my leg. It's called a unicameral bone cyst, and essentially what it did was completely compromise the whole condition of my bone, to the point where if you just had a little bit of like, you kicked your leg into the wrong thing, it would break the whole thing. So imagine coming down off of like, you know, it must have been 12 feet in the air, I promise. Definitely not 12 inches, okay? But as I come down off the bike, all of a sudden my leg hitting the ground completely shatters my femur bone, to the point where you cannot count the amount of fracture lines that are there. And there I am on the ground, crying in front of a bunch of 6-year-olds that are all like, what's happening? Like, you just came off a bike. Like, this isn't that big of a deal, man. My grandfather's scooping me up, trying to carry me back in. They're praying over me like we don't know what happened. They're taking me to the hospital in the middle of nowhere. My parents are out in the middle of the ocean. They have no clue what's going on. And in this moment, I'm just now, I kid you not, this was like the first year of my life where I finally started to follow Jesus, and this is what happens. Have you ever had a moment like that where it just feels like, it's not even like I don't want to move forward, it's I can't. I don't know how. I could not pick myself up to move forward. There was nothing I could do. And in that moment, I'm literally asking myself, am I ever going to walk again? Am I ever going to be able to do things that a normal human being does? Or am I going to have all this stuff? Have you ever had a moment when you hit a wall and you felt like you couldn't move forward? Was it maybe after a relationship that you thought, this is it, they're the one, and then all of a sudden it just slips through your fingers and you're wondering, why on earth did I even believe? Why did I try? Why did I give so much of my heart to this? I never want to move forward again. Maybe it's after your dream job that you thought, this is it, I finally found it. I mean, that moment whenever you're looking at the job description and you're like, this is it. I love the salary. I love the place. It looks like it's going to have everything. And then all of a sudden they pick somebody and you're like, them? Like, are you kidding me? Like, that was my dream job. You had that moment where all of a sudden it falls? Have you had the moment whenever you get a diagnosis and you're wondering, how on earth do I move forward? How? How do I reconcile? How do I even live? Have you ever had the moment where you did something and you were so overwhelmed with the shame of it that you're looking yourself in the mirror and you're like, I didn't even know I was capable of this. I didn't know that I could do something that would hurt somebody like that. I didn't know that I could do something because I always told myself they're like that, but not me. And then all of a sudden you're wondering, how do I move forward? And if we're honest, sometimes in church, whenever we're in moments like this, it feels like we just want to say to each other, well, you got to pray more. You got to just try harder. Just get up, keep going. But sometimes in life it feels more than that. It feels like there's some greater things going on because it's not just a question of how do I move forward. It's a question of why would God even let me get in this situation in the first place? We have a lot of questions, a lot of bitterness, a lot of resentment that can just start to make its way into our heart that causes us to just stop. Causes us to look at ourselves differently, where we start saying things about ourselves and thinking things where we go, I'm always this kind of a person. This is just always how it is for me. It's not how it is for other people, but this is just my story, my walk, everything that I have to go through over and over again. I know that these are difficult times and difficult moments. I don't know if you're in a moment right now where you feel like you're stopped. Maybe there's even segments of your life that are just stopped, but I need to tell you this wasn't God's plan. This wasn't his desire that you would have to stop. His desire for your life is movement. His desire for your life is life. His desire is growth. And I'm not saying that based off of an opinion. I'm saying that because when he created us, that was the design. But yet, when human beings first sinned, Genesis 3:8 tells us what happens. It says that they hid from the Lord God among the trees. They stopped. They said, let's find something safer than trying to move forward. This has been the response of humanity. This has been where so many of us get to, where whenever it comes down to hardships, problems, things that seem so overwhelming, we get to a place where we just stop. This is what our world teaches us. Quite frankly, this is what everything teaches us except for Jesus. See, Jesus teaches us something different. Jesus shows us time and time again as we read through the story of his life that the things that are supposed to stop us don't stop him. The things that are supposed to end us don't end him. To the very point where what was our ending place in life of death, Jesus shows that's not even enough to stop me. And he does that, inviting us into a new life with him so that we would be able to move forward. We wouldn't have to stay stopped. We wouldn't have to stay in a place where we're saying, I don't think I should move forward on this. I'm just going to give up on these dreams. I'm just going to end. Can I tell you, when I can't move forward, when I'm in these spots, it helps whenever I look at the scriptures because what I see is where God's at most of the time. What I love is Revelation 4:8. It talks about how the angels, the ones who are close to God, what it says that they are constantly praising to God. It says this. It says that they are constantly saying this, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God, the Almighty. And these words are the ones that just resonate so deeply with me. The one who was, the one who is, and who is still to come. Can I just encourage you for a moment? Whenever you feel like you're alone, you're not. It says that he was in the past. He is today. He will be in the future. Whenever you feel like you don't have a direction and you don't know where to go, let me remind you, your God was in your past, He is in your present, He will be there in your future. When you feel like there are walls around you, I have to remind you that there is a God that continually broke walls down. He will break walls down around you, and in your future, when you feel like you can't move forward, He will be the one to direct you. When you feel like you're drowning, when you feel like there is nowhere that you can go, there is a God who was, who is, and who will be. There is a God who wants to free you to move forward today. I'm going to just put this message really simple for you. You are free to move forward because there's someone ahead of you. I want you to just hear this. You are free today to move forward because there's someone who's ahead of you. I'm not saying this as just something that is, it just sounds like a nice little ringy statement. This is a reality you get to walk in. Where you're walking at right now, you are not in a place where you have to wonder, God, are you here with me? Or did you just send me out, and do you want me to just kind of live in this life? And are you just watching from a distance going, I wonder what's going to happen. Let's see if they keep going. He's with you. He has got you from behind. He's got you where you're at. And the steps you take forward, He's still with you. That gives me some confidence because if I can be honest, there's some crazy things God asks me to do. Sometimes when I'm wondering, God, do you know what you're asking me to do? It's helpful when I know that you're already ahead of me. It's helpful when I know that you're not just standing next to me, but you're also paving the way for me to move forward. He's not absent from your life. Because I know that whenever He is ahead of us, sometimes that makes us feel like, man, like, are you even there, God? Can I just tell you something about myself that I think might be true for God for a second? When I'm doing some heavy work, I'm not normally talking. Typically, if you're feeling silence from God, that's not because He is absent, that's because He's working. If you're wondering, man, I want to move forward, but I just can't, it's probably because God's doing some pretty important things ahead of you, especially if you feel like you're at a spot right now in your life where you were stopped. Because what I love is when I think about who my God is for a second. When I know that the person ahead of me is the ultimate provider, I feel a little bit more comfortable about how I walk forward. Whenever I know that He is my comforter, I can have a little bit more joy as I walk forward. When I know that He is the ultimate victory, I have peace as I move forward. But I want to make this a little bit more practical. How do we move forward? And in order to do this, we're going to be looking at a story in the Bible of a man who was in a spot where he was completely stuck. Where he was like, I know I need to move forward. I know God's telling me to move forward, but I just can't even do it. And through this, hear me, why we even resonate on the scriptures, why we take time to do this, is because as we meditate on God's word, He speaks to us. Why we take this time in a service is not, again, because I am some great speaker, but because God is a great speaker. Because God communicates to us through His word. And while this same situation might not happen to us, the same God who's in this situation is with us. So it encourages me to know this is how you were in the past, knowing He's the God who was, He's the God who is, and He's the God who will be. So if I know that this is the God who was, I can have some faith to know that this is who will be today. What we're looking at is a story in Exodus. To kind of set this up, we're looking at one of the craziest stories in the Bible. It's one of these stories that people oftentimes will look at and they'll be like, did God actually do that, or is this some type of metaphorical thing that happened? It's a story that people look at and they're like, that's kind of crazy. Can God actually do that? Because I've never seen Him do that before. But it's a story that's really important. Because as what we see in the first couple books in the Bible, God has this people that He's trying to help get to this promised land, and along the way they get stuck. They stop. And in the second book of the Bible, in Exodus, we're going to be looking at chapter 14, we see that God's people are stuck at a point. And when I say God's people, I'm saying 4 million people are stuck. I don't know about you, but it's kind of hard to move 4 million people. It was kind of hard to move however many people were outside of MSG the other night, okay? It was kind of hard to get them down after all they climbed up, okay? Listen, like, I love the Knicks 1 and 2, but like, it's scary, like, they're going to fall, okay? But it's kind of hard to move all those people, but God is telling them, I want you to move. And so we see in the beginning of this book, God is freeing His people, showing them all of these different idols, these different things that they have replaced God with, how God is showing up time and time again, showing them, I am the true God. And finally takes these people out, takes them, and finally they get to a spot where they're stuck, which is what we pick up on in Exodus chapter 14. Verses 1 through 4 read like this. It says, "Then the Lord gave these instructions to Moses." Moses is the man we're focusing on. He's the one who's leading God's people. It says, "Order the Israelites to turn back and camp by Pharaoth between Migdol and the sea. Camp there along the shore across from Baal-Zephon. Then Pharaoh will think, oh, the Israelites are confused. They are trapped in the wilderness. And once again, I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will chase after you. I have planned this in order to display my glory through Pharaoh and his whole army. After this, the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord." So the Israelites camped there as they were told. We're going to pause there for a second, because here's what's happening there. God's telling Moses, I'm going to have you do something, and everybody else is going to think you're crazy. That's the translation of this. The other armies are going to look at you, and they're going to go, they don't know what they're doing. They're nuts. They have no clue. Are you okay with the fact that you moving forward might look crazy to everybody else? Are you okay with that reality? God might ask you to do something intentionally knowing everybody else is going to look at you and say, you're crazy. That's where we find Moses at, but it gets worse, okay? Because when we look at verses 9 through 12, it says, the Egyptians chased after them with all the forces in Pharaoh's army, all his horses and chariots, his charioteers, and his troops. The Egyptians caught up with the people of Israel as they were camped beside the shore near Pharaoth across from Baal-Zephon. As Pharaoh approached the people of Israel, Israel looked up and panicked when they saw the Egyptians overtaking them. They cried out to the Lord and said to Moses, "Why did you bring us out here to die in the wilderness? Weren't there enough graves for us in Egypt? What have you done to us? Why did you make us leave Egypt? Didn't we tell you this would happen while we were still in Egypt? We said, leave us alone. Let us be slaves to the Egyptians. It's better to be a slave in Egypt than a corpse in the wilderness." Have you ever had a moment like this? God asks you to do something crazy, and then everybody's looking at you, and they're like, why? Why did you do this? Why are you in this place now? Look at what God did. He brought you to this spot, and now everybody is mad, not at God, but at you. Maybe you've even been in this spot too, where you're just mad at yourself. Why did I trust God? Why did I take a step forward? Why on earth would I believe him? Why would I believe that God could do a single thing? Let's talk through a few steps. How do we actually move forward? Because if you know this story, this isn't where the story ends. This isn't how the story stops. Because what happens here is one of the greatest miracles. And what we see happening over and over again in Moses' life is that whenever he takes a step of obedience and he says, all right, God, I'm going to step up and do it, what he's always met with is frustration. Always. I mean, the very first moment, whenever God tells Moses, go and speak to Pharaoh, he says, okay. Moses goes and he talks to Pharaoh and he says, can you let God's people go? Pharaoh says, absolutely not. I'm going to make the work twice as hard, and I'm going to take away a bunch of their resources. And guess who they all got mad at? Not at God, not at Pharaoh, Moses. They're like, why did you have to open up your big mouth? I mean, have you had a moment like this? This is the first thing we have to do. Here's your first point to write down. How do I move forward? How do I live in the freedom of this? I move past frustration. I move past it. There's a lot of us that think, man, following God and being obedient, it's easy. Can I just give you a little bit of reality for a second? It's not always easy. It's sometimes frustrating because taking a step of obedience is one of the craziest things that I do. It's as if I am bringing God's kingdom in that very step right here to this earth. It is one of the most offensive things I do to this planet by showing it, God, you have your reign back here as I take a step of obedience. Why would we think that's easy? Why would we think that's going to be met with a lot of people that are saying, that's such a great idea. Go do that. That's awesome. Now, hear me, because there's wisdom on this. Whenever you take some crazy steps, you need some people there in your life that are able to love you, that are able to care, that are able to say, hey, we want to be able to be here, some accountability and some supports. But I can tell you this, you're also going to find some people that are saying, I don't know that that's wrong, but it sounds kind of dumb, okay? I don't know if you should do that, but it sounds kind of crazy. But here's the thing that is beneath frustration that a lot of us don't always manage well. It's the bitterness that we have towards God. And I need to just talk to you for a moment. Because whether or not you've been following God for a day, whether you've been following him for your whole life, at some point or another, we keep following, we keep trying to move forward, and then we reach these points where we're just like, God, why? Why is it like this? Why is it that I can't do what everybody else does? Why is it that they get to do that and I don't get it? Why is it that everybody else seems like they're blessed, everybody else seems like their lives are great, and then there's mine? And what is the biggest crime, probably the hardest thing, is that we rarely ever talk with God about it. We'll talk with everybody else about it, but we won't really talk with him about it. Because there's a lot of us that have this idea of, I just need to be so respectful of God that I don't want him to, I don't want to say anything rude. I don't want to say anything bad. I have 150 Psalms that say some pretty crazy things. I have 150 Psalms that say almost the exact same things that you say and wish would happen to those bikers that almost run into you on the streets. Okay? David said, I hope they die in a ditch. You've probably said the same thing about bikers. Hope they fall off a bridge. Okay? I'm sorry if anybody biked here. We'll pray for you later. But listen, what happens so much of the time is we are afraid to be honest with God. The bitterness festers and the frustration, and then what happens is we stop. I want to tell you this, the most respectful way to handle your bitterness is being honest with God. The most respectful way to handle your bitterness is if you are honest with God. I remember the day when I had a mentor tell me, they're like, Colin, have you forgiven God? And I was like, whoa, God hasn't done anything bad or terrible. He's a good God. How could I? But they were like, yeah, but you hold offense towards him. Do you hold offense towards him? Because if you hold offense, it's quite literally something that stops you from being able to move and step forward. What some of us have to do is be honest and ask God to be able to just say to God, I forgive you for the things that I maybe misunderstood. For the seasons of my life that I'm angry because I'm saying, you never showed up. You were never there. Why is it that they said those words to me and it felt like you just weren't in that spot? Why is it that these people were allowed to do these things to me? Why is it that it felt like you weren't there? Whenever you have those conversations with God, you realize, oh, he was in the room the whole time. He's more angry than you were about the situation. He sees it. And whenever I allow God in, I'm actually able to step forward. This is what Moses had to do time and time again. Because you might be asking, like, well, what does this have to do with how I move forward? Because you won't move forward with the person who's ahead of you. You'll move in a different direction. You'll go anywhere else. This is why we were singing that song of, God, you are my one thing. You are the only thing, because if Jesus isn't the direction, what I'll do is I'll stop, or worse off, I'll move in a different direction that I'm not supposed to go in the first place. But whenever I know that there's somebody ahead of me that I can trust, I have the confidence to step forward. This story keeps going, and it unravels this new layer whenever we look at verses 13 through 16. Remember, the people are panicked. They're looking at Moses. They're saying, why did you bring us here to die? Like, we could have stayed and been happy. But Moses told the people, don't be afraid. Just stand still and watch the Lord rescue you today. The Egyptians you see today will never be seen again. The Lord himself will fight for you. Just stay calm. And then we see the Lord's response. It says, then the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the people to get moving. Pick up your staff and raise your hand over the sea. Divide the water so the Israelites can walk through the middle of the sea on dry ground. There's something that happens here. And it's a pattern that Moses finds himself in that we often find ourselves in a lot too. It's this moment where Moses is saying, if I encourage everybody else, I build up your faith. God's going to do it, isn't he? And then everybody gets all excited and they're like, yeah, God's going to do it. He's like, all right, let's all go. That's not what's happening. God's saying, I'm not going to let everybody else be your codependent place, that your codependent source that you can actually rely on. Do you know how many times Moses tried to pawn it off and say, okay, God, can I have my brother do it? Quite literally. He said, I don't want to speak to Pharaoh. I want somebody else to take care of this. I want to let somebody else do this. And God's saying, you. I don't need anybody else to be the one to help you move forward whenever there's somebody ahead of you that's already made the path clear. But there's a lot of us that are in this spot. The second thing that we do to move forward, you have to go first. You have to go first. I mean, just think about this for a second. Summertime, I don't know about you, but I was that person. I always wanted somebody else to jump in the pool first. Tell me how warm it is. Tell me how cold it is. Tell me if anybody did anything weird in there. Okay? I was just like, I don't want to be the first one in there. It feels weird. You're just like, I'm in here. Come on, God. I don't know about you. I'm not the guy who likes to go first on things. That's why I still wear skinny jeans. Y'all can wear your own baggy stuff for a while, okay? Listen, I'll catch up eventually, but right now I like living where I'm at, all right? There's a number of things where I'm going to live in the past. I'm going to stay. You can go first. But when God tells you to do something, you have to go first. You can't be waiting for other people. He's not going to let you. Because exactly like with Moses, he's saying, I already gave you everything you need to be able to move forward now, to go first. Can I tell you, there's some problems right now that God has allowed you to see, and you're wondering, why doesn't my pastor see this? Why doesn't this person see this? Why doesn't our mayor see this? Because they're not supposed to. You're the one that's supposed to go first. You're the one that God's asking to step out. He doesn't need anybody else to do it. He needs you to be the one to step out and show and lead the way. Can I tell you this? I know there's some of you that God's asking to do things that are completely different from your family patterns. You're going to be the first person in your family to live with sexual integrity. You're going to be the first one that's going to prioritize and say, I'm actually going to manage my finances and not live in debt month to month. You're the one that's saying, I know this is how my family did it. I know my parents were ones that never affirmed each other, that never were able to affirm their children, but that's not the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to do things differently now. I'm going to step into it because God isn't saying do what they did. He's telling me to step first into it. There's some of you that God has put some really clear things that he wants you to do to build up his kingdom, and you're waiting for somebody else to affirm it. You're waiting until somebody else calls you out from the platform to be able to say, now is your time. God's the one who speaks that to you. God's the one who affirms you. God's the one who's going to help you be able to move forward. And I'm not saying you don't do that without wisdom and accountability, but I'm saying stop waiting for somebody else to give you permission when God has already told you to step forward and go first. If you're waiting for somebody to go out ahead of you, I want to tell you they already did. His name is Jesus. If you're waiting to look ahead on the one you need to be watching and following, his name is Jesus. Because I can tell you this, Jesus modeled this time and time again. He models for us as the one that goes first. When there was a woman at a well in John 4 that nobody else would go to, Jesus decided, I'll go to her. I'll do it. I'll talk with them. Whenever there was a tax collector that was up in a tree just watching, Jesus was the one who said, I'll talk to them first. Whenever we see that there were people that no one else would touch, Jesus said, I will touch them first. I will be the one to bring healing into their life. Can I tell you this? Following Jesus requires me to go first into places that no one else wants to go. Following Jesus will require you to go to places nobody else wants you to go, to do things that nobody else wants to do. Can I tell you, I came to New York City at 28 years old. I should have come here sooner. Can I tell you why I didn't? Because nobody else wanted to come. I'm from Pittsburgh, and I love my people back in Pittsburgh. If any of you are watching this on the playback, I love you. Don't take this as any hate. But I was waiting for somebody else to say, yeah, let's go do this, Colin. I was waiting for somebody else to say to me, come on, it's time. And what happened was it was like this thing started to fester, okay? It was like I was just locked into something, and I knew God was doing something in my heart. And I remember sitting talking with my boss at the time, and she was asking me, she's like, Colin, like, are you sure you want to go? I mean, things are kind of nice here. Like, you're doing great in everything you're doing here. And I'm like, yeah, but there's just something on the inside of me that I can't stop, and I can't shut down anymore. It's like I'm holding myself back from moving forward. And I know that God's with me here right now, and that if I choose to be disobedient, God's still going to love me. I'm still going to go to heaven. But I'm not going to be me. I'm going to regret this for my life if I don't just step out to try, if I don't just take the step and say, let me just see what happens if I move forward. And can I tell you, for a while when I first moved out here, that was a lot of living in faith, hoping, maybe wondering, God, are you going to do this? And we see step after step after step to the point where if you want to know whether or not I should have moved forward, look around. Because God is clearly moving. God is doing something here. If you don't move forward, it might impact somebody else too. But let's take this back. You are free to be able to move forward because there's someone ahead of you. You can move past the frustrations. You're going to be the one that has to go first. But the story doesn't end at that spot. It's not like Moses stays in a spot where he's stuck. He doesn't stay there with a panicked group of 4 million people all yelling at him. He doesn't stay there with the armies of Pharaoh at a distance watching, saying, I wonder if we're about to die. Verses 19 through 22 in chapter 14, it says, Then the angel of God who had been leading the people of Israel moved to the rear of the camp. The pillar of cloud also moved from the front and stood behind them. The cloud settled down between the Egyptians and the Israelites' camps. As darkness fell, the cloud turned into fire, lighting up the night. But the Egyptians and Israelites did not approach each other all night. Then Moses raised his hand over the sea, and the Lord opened up a path through the water with a strong east wind. The wind blew all that night, turning the seabed into dry land. So the people of Israel walked through the middle of the sea on dry grounds with walls of water on each side. Now, that if you've been in church for a while, if you were like me, where your mom was in church too much and she practically gave birth to you in it, okay? This is a story where you're like, yeah, God split the sea. Put this in context for a second. Moses didn't know God could do this, okay? At that point in time, the Bible wasn't written. They had Genesis, and they knew because they were telling the stories to one another of, remember what God did. Can I tell you what never happens in Genesis? God never splits a sea. Can I tell you what happens in Genesis? There was never a giant army coming from behind, and there was a pillar, and there was fire, and there were 4 million people. There was never a moment where they wondered, okay, what does God do? Let me look in the Bible. He did this here. They're wondering, God, what are you going to do? Moses is holding his hand out over the sea going, I wonder what's going to happen next. I wonder what's going to go on. I wonder what's going to take place now. Because whenever we want to keep moving forward, we have to accept the reality we're going to follow into something new. We're going to follow into something that you might not have seen before. Do you believe that your God can truly do something miraculous? I'm not talking about do you believe that he did do something miraculous? Remember, it's the God who was, who is, and who will be. That means he did this then. What do you think he wants to do today? I don't know about you, but when I know that I can do something, maybe this is just me being a little bit too arrogant, but if I know that I can do something, and I'm put in a spot where I can do it again, I want to do it again. When God is in a position with us where we feel like we are stopped and we can't move forward, and we're saying, God, we want to move forward, but in order to do this, you're going to have to unleash and reveal something new. What happens is God steps up and he does something new. I'm saying this because that story that I told you at the beginning, obviously I'm walking today, but that's not the miraculous part. The miraculous part is I'm there in that hospital room in the Poconos with a bunch of people, and they tell me at that point, Colin, we're going to put you in an ambulance. We're going to take you back to Pittsburgh because at that point in time, my leg's fractured, and I've got all this titanium hardware in my femur bone, and they're like, we don't even want to touch this. We need to get you back. So for this trip back, we're going to give you some morphine so that you're able to be able to make the trip. What we didn't know until that time was I was allergic to morphine. And you want to know what morphine does to me, my allergic reaction? I shake pretty violently. Can I tell you what is not fun to do whenever you have a shattered femur bone is to shake in any way. And so I'm there. These doctors had given me enough morphine for an ambulance ride from the Poconos to Pittsburgh. It's about a 5-hour ride. And they were like, well, what do we do now? And they said, we have to wait until it stops. So you're just going to have to ride this out. You're just going to have to be here. I'm there. This is 2 a.m. with my grandmother. My parents just got a phone call. They're like, yeah, your kid's got a busted leg. Have fun with that. I'm like looking at all these doctors shaking violently. And they're like, we have nothing we can do. It's not like we can get out of your system now. And they're all just standing there watching. It was at that point in time that I told you I just started following Jesus. And I don't know about you, but there's just times whenever I don't maybe do it as pretty as I could be, but I just decided I was going to pray. I decided, God, I'm going to try to move forward right now. So I started to pray, and not just weak, wimpy prayers of saying, like, God, do you think maybe I knew who my God was? So I said, God, I know that you can. Please make this stop right now in my body. I know you're the God that's capable of doing anything. So I declare all of this right now happening, this reaction, to stop. And I didn't have a lot of moments like this in my life. But that was one of them when it happens. And they all went, oh, what? Because this 15-year-old that's body's shaking violently, they're looking at me as the whole room just goes silent. And they're going, what just happened? They just saw something new. Because can I tell you something? I need you to be clear. I need to be clear on this. Sometimes we're looking for some big, powerful, amazing words from God, as if God needs to open up the skies and to be able to say something to you. Can I tell you, his word is full of a lot of instructions towards us. One of them being that we can come boldly before him and pray and know that he hears us. And when we do that, we're able to see something happen. We're able to see God move. Because, can I tell you, there are plenty of instructions God has spoken to you already. Things He has already given you. Enough words that are in this, that if we never felt like there was another divine word that God spoke to us, we would still have more than enough to follow, more than enough to move forward. And the only reason in that moment I was able to move forward was not because I had some doctors that were really smart, was not because I had the people that I felt most protected with. I was incredibly uncomfortable. But I thought, maybe I could just move forward. Maybe I could just take a step forward and see what happens. And I can tell you in that moment, there was something undeniable that happens. In that moment, those doctors are going, okay, there's something wrong here. We don't understand this. But there's something more that occurs when you move forward. Moses felt uncomfortable. Moses felt frustrated. Moses felt mad. Moses felt like this is something so new and this is something so beyond me. Moses led 4 million people from a place of slavery to a place of freedom. Your moving forward is not just for you. I need you to hear this. Your moving forward is not just about you. God wants you to be able to take this step, but I need you to understand, as you step forward, it causes movement. It's as if things just start flowing in a different way. It's as if things start to change, because what we see after this are more and more of these moments where Moses all of a sudden starts to have a little bit more faith. Like when they're out in the wilderness and they're saying, we need something to drink. Moses goes up to a rock, and knocks it with his stick, and water starts coming out of it. Now, he didn't know that God could do that, but he said, you know what? Sure, let's try it. He split the seas. As you move forward, you will cause other people to move forward into freedom. It's the thing that we've said kind of as a really important theme throughout this entire series, that as you are living in freedom, you will bring other people into freedom. Or to put it really simply, free people free people. If you are a free person, you tend to free other people. Whenever we experience the genuine freedom of Jesus, it tends to do something in our hearts. It tends to do something in our lives. So I want you to be encouraged. You can move forward. But I want you to think for a second, what is that one thing? Because it might be something really specific, but it also might be something as simple and powerful as saying, what I need to do is I need to actually take my faith seriously. I need to read my Bible. For some of you, that step's going to be just as simple as saying, you know what, there's some events that we're doing here over the summer. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be uncomfortable picking up some trash outside. I'm going to step into signing up for spiritual mentorship, which you can do on our website. It is right there so that you have people that are walking alongside you. And I know that might feel uncomfortable because you're like, but I got to tell people about my life. I got to, that's right, move forward. What is that step that you need to take? What is that place that you've arrived at where you said, I've stopped here, but I know I need to move forward? I'm going to ask you to just close your eyes for this moment. I want to just pray for you. And let me just ask a few of you for a second. If you're in a place right now where you'd say, I just have a place in my life right now where I've stopped. I'm not moving forward. I have just given up. I've said I'm done. God, I don't think you can do anything. Or you're just like, I don't even know how to move forward. If you're in that place, could you just slip up your hand just so I know, so I can pray with you? I want you to know you're not alone in this. There's a God who sees you and where you're at right now. There's a God who is behind you. There's a God who is with you. There's a God who is ahead of you. Jesus sees you right now. And I just want to pray for you as we take these next couple moments. God, we recognize your goodness and your strength and your power. Lord, we pray over every single one of us in this room that feel stopped, that feel like we can't move forward, that feel like we don't even know the steps. God, we are relying on the fact that you are ahead of us, on the fact that you are the one who has taken step after step so that we might move forward. It's not by our strength, it's not by our power, but it's by your Spirit that equips us. So God, I pray that we would have your strength, your joy to be able to stand up today, to be able to take whatever step we need to do to move forward, knowing that it's not because of us that we move forward, but because of your strength within us, your power made real, made known within us. With your eyes closed, I want to just talk to another group of you. Because the step you haven't taken yet is a step where you're saying, Jesus, I need you as my Savior and my Lord. And you've been waiting, you've been wondering, saying, God, is there a point in time where I'll finally feel ready? But there's a moment whenever we have to take a step of faith and stand out. When we have to say, God, I'm going to take the step forward now because I know that you're with me right now. You'll be ahead of me in my present, in my future, in my eternity. If that's you, I want you to just slip your hand up in the air right now. And I have my eyes closed because you're not even raising this up for me. You're raising this up for Jesus right now. You're getting his attention. You're talking to him right now. You're doing this for him because this is a decision that you're making to follow him. I want all of us in the room to pray this prayer together. Repeat after me. Say, Jesus, I'm choosing you right now. I'm choosing to move forward towards you. I believe you came to this earth, that you died on a cross, and you came back to life. So I choose to enter into a relationship with you. I want you as my Lord and Savior for this moment and forever. Jesus, I choose you.